Hi, Carl here for ProAV TV. So I'm outside in the park today on a very mediocre day in the UK to talk to you about the Sony Z90. So this is a camera I've been trying to get hold of for quite a while on this channel. The reason for the delay in this video is that I've been trying to get both this and the Canon XF405 in the same place at the same time to do a comparisons video. But that is proving quite difficult. So I decided to do this video now and to do that video a little later when models are easier to come by. So this is Sony's answer to the recent trend of high autofocus performing 1-inch camcorders. At its heart, it's a very similar camera to the X70. The X70 was a fantastic little camera, and this has much the same recording capabilities, the exact same lens on the front, the same physical housing, it's the same sort of dimensions, the same weight. It's a little more power hungry than the X70 was, but essentially you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference. There is a slight difference in the recording codec. It uses 100 megabits a second rather than 60 megabits a second, but essentially they're the same. So what's new? The main thing is this autofocus performance. It is a huge step up in terms of autofocus performance. And the other thing that's new is HDR support. So like a lot of Sony's cameras nowadays, this has built-in support for HLG, which gives you instant HDR performance. So the main advantage here is definitely the autofocus performance. In a small camera like this, which you're normally shooting with handheld and you're just running around trying to grab as much footage as possible in a shorter period of time as possible, autofocus is hugely important. And up until this point, it's been very hard to get decent quality autofocus on large chip cameras. This has a 1-inch size sensor inside it, which is a lot bigger than most camcorders you would see of this sort of style. Recently with the X70, they started to go to 1-inch sensors for that cinematic shallow depth field and better low light. And now we've got that decent autofocus performance on a 1-inch sensor, which is a fantastic combination. Most of the autofocus is controlled through a touchscreen, which seems fairly responsive. I do wish it was a little more responsive. You can sort of feel the screen bend in a little bit as you press it, which isn't the nicest feeling in the world. But it does seem most of the time to do what you want it to. When you're not controlling it at all, you get these nice green dots which show you what the camera is trying to keep in focus and focus on. And then once you touch on the screen, it will select an object and move with that object as it moves, which is brilliant. And so you can use that to pull between objects if you want to. Okay, so there's a couple of things that have stood out straight away that I'm not that keen on. The first of them is the placement of the MI shoe. So Sony's MI shoe is a fantastic technology that they've got that allows an accessory like a wireless lav mic set, for example, or others, to communicate directly with the camera through the hot shoe. And the obvious place for this would be nice and here up on the top of the camera so that you can have your XLR inputs, your audio controls, and an MI shoe accessory connected there. But that's not an MI shoe. This one here in between the camera and the handle is an MI shoe, and they're obviously using that technology for this XLR and these audio controls to communicate with the camera body, which is okay. It's quite a nice toolless design and it's a nice top handle. But if you want to use one of those MI shoe accessories, you would have to take off this and just use it here on the camera. So one thing I always like to test out on camcorders like this is the zoom range. How far can you go from wide to telephoto? And this is a 9.3 to 111.6 millimeter lens, which is a super 35 millimeter equivalent of about 29 to 348 millimeters. So it's a really good range. It's a 12 times optical zoom. It could be a little bit wider on the wide end than 29 millimeters equivalent, but I mean, you can always use a wide angle adapter to get a bit wider if you need it. There's also Sony's clear image zoom technology, which is fantastic. If you haven't used that before, you really should. It's a form of digital zoom where it rather than just adding sharpness to the entire image, it intelligently chooses which areas need sharpness and which ones don't. There's two little ergonomic things about the camera which irritate me slightly when I'm using it handheld like this. The first is the placement of this joystick. So it's in the right place, it's here on the right hand side of the camera to use with your thumb, and if it was here where the record button is or where the HDMI port is, it'd be really comfortable. But it's not, it's sort of over here to one side, a little bit awkward. You have to bend your thumb to get to it. It's okay if you're just getting to it for 30 seconds, but if you're there for a couple of minutes, it can really cramp up your thumb. The other thing is the placement of this wheel here. This is used for your settings like your iris, your gain, things like that. And it's hidden by the LCD screen. So if you need to take your hand off the wheel while using it to get to the LCD screen to maybe change your focus point by using the touch screen, something like that, it can be a little bit hard to find again because you can't directly see it. This might get better after using the camera for a while, but it's certainly something I'm struggling with it being the first time that I'm shooting with this camera. So a big addition that Sony have been making across pretty much their entire lineup is the addition of HLG, or hybrid log gamma. This is a form of HDR that the BBC have been developing so that you can shoot in HDR and deliver in HDR without having to do complex grades. And this has 4 flavors of HLG in it so that you can choose the exact type of HLG for the shooting scenario. It's not something we can really show you in this video because this isn't going to be delivered in HDR. And anyway, it's pretty much the most flat and uninspiring day I've seen here for a long time. It's really ugly weather today. So there's not much point in shooting much HLG content for you. But it's something that I will definitely be making a future video on how you'd use it, why you'd use it, and what it is. So make sure to look out for that if you're interested in HLG. Slow motion has always been one of Sony's strengths with their cameras, and it's no exception here. In 1080p you can do up to 100 frames a second continuously, or up to 1000 frames a second if you do shoot in bursts and you crop in a little, which is amazing. To be honest, the quality is only really good enough past 250 frames a second. You would never go up to 1000 unless it's for research or something like that. For cinematic quality, you'd never go that high, but it's nice to have it. One thing that is definitely missing though is 4K, 50p or 60p. You don't get any of that in this camera, which I think is probably Sony's biggest omission from the Z90. So the Z90 is a great little camera. It takes everything that was already great about the X70 and just makes it better by adding that autofocus. The X70 was a very capable camera for the size and for the cost. It really could do a lot, but the autofocus was always the main limitation. And just even that one improvement is enough, I think, for people to upgrade to the Z90. It really makes a huge difference. The thing that I'm missing the most is definitely 60p in 4K. It has some brilliant slow motion modes in 1080p, but nothing in 4K. It would really have been nice to get some 4K 50p or 4K 60p. But overall though, I think this is a great little camera. Thanks for watching. Make sure to leave any comments you have about the camera down in the comment section down below. And if you wanted to know more information about the Z90, you can find it all at ProAV's website. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.